शुक्लांबरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये दक्षिणामूर्तिसमारम्भां शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्तां वन्दे गुरुपरम्परां गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अखण्डमण्डलाकारं व्याप्तं येन चराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। गणपति बप्पा जय श्री राम। So I did some quick research. First of all, happy Father's Day to all the wonderful fathers in the group and to our own fathers. It's apparently International Father's Day today. So thought I missed in the morning session to wish. Now is a good time anyway. So happy Father's Day to all of us. So I was doing a quick research last week on how a pravachan or how a storytelling has to be done and whether there are any rules. So apparently there are some rules in our Shastra as to how to do storytelling. Actually more on what are the things one is not supposed to do when he does a storytelling. So I'll just quickly enumerate a few. This could be a good benchmark point for you all to benchmark me whether I am doing it right or no. So few things which have been stipulated in our Shastras is that one, the entire storytelling should not be in a singing form. So there could be places where it can be done. So pravachan is different and harikatha are different forms. Harikatha predominantly goes based on singing. Harikatha, even if there is an harikatha that is done, although a predominant chunk turns out to be music and in singing form, there have to be breaks to explain what is being sung. That is very important because a lot of times the artha, that is the meaning, it's not just shabdartha, that is not just words meaning. There is a lot of hidden meaning between the lines and that needs to be explained. So in a pravachan, clearly it should not be just in music form. More of it has to be in terms of words, and then in between you can have small songs. Again, one has to give meanings to those as well. The second is not to utter anything very fast. So, sometimes when we are not sure of what we are speaking, generally in meetings, we just kind of utter something very fast, so I'm hoping that the other person is not heard. So that is not supposed to happen. Okay, not to use too much of hand and head signs. So what happens in pravachan is generally a lot of people. Senior pravachankars will have hundreds of people sitting in their presence, So something in terms of hand or a facial sign. So for example, Rama asks something to Lakshmana and Lakshmana did this. If a pravachankar just says, not just head, somebody is sitting a lot of rows behind will not be able to see what he said or what he did. So one is not supposed to use too much of hand and head movements. He is supposed to speak and explain. Not to tell wrong meanings. Okay, this is very important and this is a huge responsibility on any person who sits and ends up telling stories. He should not tell stories with meanings that fits his logic. He should not tell meanings which fit modern logic, which probably was not the original intent at all. So a storyteller needs to do research, find out what the original intent was, what the Shastras actually meant, and try and place it. Whether or not he himself agrees to it, whether or not it suits his comfort and convenience. His duty is to tell the truth. And not to just read stories. Okay, so a lot of people read it like a news item, with a teleprompter. Just keep reading as if they are reading a book. So one should not read. He is supposed to be doing it extempore. He can have notes, but he is supposed to be reading. He is supposed to give an extempore speech and give meaning of everything that he speaks of. So these are the 5 basic qualities, or more than anything, it is not to do things. Those are the things that our Shastras speak of. And now I would want you all to benchmark me whether I am doing any of these. So I thought I'll start with that. This is something that interesting I did during this week. So we had kind of reached the end of Aranyakand, which is where the forest stay of Rama and Sita and Lakshmana kind of comes to an end. Ravana has abducted Sita and taken her to Lanka and has placed her in Ashokavana. This is something that we saw. Rama and Lakshmana, we also saw from their perspective as to how they unravel the list of evidences that are there in their presence and how they start off in the right direction. So right from the flowers that Rama picked up that morning to give to Sita, that itself becomes an evidence because they are they are laid on the ground and they are showing a particular direction. So that becomes the initial evidence. Then they meet Jatayu, then they meet Shabari. So each one is kind of unraveling the next level and they are moving ahead as if they are unraveling the entire story. Because they don't know. They know Ravana is abducted, but they don't know where he has taken, what is he done with her. So they have to now unravel each of it. They killed a demon called Kabanda. If you remember, that is where we had come to. They had killed a demon called Kabanda and who was a cursed Gandharva, and he tells them that you go and befriend Sugriva and his company so that they will help you find Sita. So that is the help that Kabanda does. They go and witness. I told this as a specific difference between what they did with Jatayu and what Rama did with Shabari. Jatayu, Rama gave moksha, while with Shabari he just witnessed the moksha because Shabari had already been promised moksha by her guru, that is Matanga Muni, Matanga Rishi. So we had come till here. They had taken a dip in the beautiful and pious and pure river called Pampa. Okay, they are fairly refreshed. There's a cool breeze that is kind of blowing, and this is where we'll pick the story for the day. So now they've taken their bath there, and it's a beautiful evening, nice breeze blowing. Suddenly Rama becomes very sad. Now this is what happens even when a good thing is happening to him, he's still thinking about Sita. So somebody like, all of us, when we lose somebody who's dear to us, like I lost my father about some years back, 2018, so 3.5 years back. Even today when my wife cooks something, the moment I see that, the first thing that comes to my mind is, oh, my dad used to like this, right? So this is always something that will always happen to people who have lost their people, right? Their near ones. So Rama also, although it's a very pleasant evening, he immediately becomes sad. He's not able to enjoy because he feels, had Sita been with me here, it would have been so much more of a pleasure, so much more of happiness. But alas, Sita is not there. She's been abducted and he doesn't even know where Sita is. I'll just take a quick parallel to this. And this is something that generally when I come to this part of the story, something that I always get reminded of as to what it is to remain soaked in sorrow. So Veer Savarkar, a great patriot, many of all would be knowing who he was, right? Veer Damodar Savarkar, who fought for our freedom. A very unique patriot, a very unique approach to patriotism. Okay, a flavor which is hitherto unseen amongst lot of patriots. I am again not comparing patriots. It is just a flavor, right? Like saints, they come with freedom fighters also come with different flavors, and they exhibit a different kind of patriotism. If Rajguru, Sukhdev, Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad displayed a particular type of patriotism, Subhash Chandra Bose displayed a certain kind of patriotism, Mahatma Gandhi, Nehru, Patel displayed a different kind of patriotism, Veer Savarkar displayed an entirely different kind of a patriotism, and a patriotism which is unparalleled. He was so much in sorrow that his motherland was captivated by Britishers that he had stopped entertaining himself. So once he happens to go to Indore, a very famous person in Indore calls him, invites him for dinner, and he says, I have arranged for a music program for you to be entertained. Veer Savarkar says, my mother is in captive. Mother is Matrubhumi, that's my nation. My nation is in captive, she is not free. I do not entertain myself. I am in grief, and I will continue to remain in grief till such time she gets freedom. This is a kind of feeling he had for his motherland, right? These are things we can't even imagine. When you lose your wife, somebody is abducted, yes, we all are under distress. But his motherland was under captive for years together for Savarkar. But he remained in grief all those years to ensure that his motherland is free. That's the kind of patriotism he had. I thought this is something that whenever I come across this story, I always get reminded of Veer Savarkar. So I thought I'll just cover that. After that, they spend the night on the banks, and they are now reaching Rishyamukha Parvata, which is where Kabanda had told Sugriva is living. Okay, Rishyamukha Parvata happens to be near Hampi, which is in Karnataka. Okay, today's Hampi, that's where the land is. a very rocky land. So if you have seen Sholay, right, Gabbar's den, right, all that happens to be in Ramanagaram. The kind of the terrain that is shown in that particular film is what is the terrain that you will find even in Hampi. Very low vegetation, very high on rocky terrain. You know, that's the kind of terrain that it has. So he goes there, and just as they are about there at the foothill, now Sugriva is hiding there. Okay. Now I am introducing a few new characters. I'll try and explain who all these are. So there is Sugriva, there is Nala, there is Neela, there is Hanuman, and there is Jambavan. All of them are basically Vanar. Vanar are basically people who are living in the forest, primitive people, right? Primates. Van mein rehne wale nar, that is Vanar. So these people are living there. Now, Jambavan is actually a bear. Okay, he's not a primate like a monkey. He's a bear. And Jambavan has been living for years. He finds mention in Narasimha Avatar. He finds mention in Parshurama Avatar. He finds mention in Ramayana. He also finds mention in Krishna Avatar. Krishna actually ends up marrying Jambavan's daughter in Krishna Avatar. Okay, so Jambavan is someone who has lived across yugas. But he's already old. He's fairly old in Ramayana also. So what happens is Sugriva sees two people walking in their direction from a distance. They are at a vantage point, right, at the top. Immediately he's afraid. He's afraid because Sugriva is hiding from his brother, his estranged brother called Vali. Okay? We'll come to all of that story now. And he asks Hanuman, saying that, see, there are two people who are coming in this direction. Go and check discreetly if they are being sent by Vali. And you face them, and all these details are there in Valmiki Ramayana. Okay? He's saying that you have, when you meet them, you look at them in such a manner that I can see your face, okay, and the moment you sense a danger, you send a signal to me so that I can run away from here, okay. That is what Sugriva sends him with a brief. Now, this is a message that Hanuman is supposed to do. This is the work that he is supposed to do. Now let us come to quick break. Even as Hanuman is now Hanuman will have to change into a disguise, because he is not supposed to show his Vanar to these two people. He will not change his disguise, so we'll allow him some time to change himself. We'll cover as to who these people are. So what happens in an avatar? Okay, when Rama comes, when Vishnu decides that he has to take an avatar as Rama, or when Vishnu decides that I will take an avatar as Krishna, generally they are accompanied by a certain band of brothers. Why do they need that? It's like a corporate, right? A CEO doesn't do everything, right? He's supposed to lay down the policies, the strategy on how it is to be done, and generally give a guideline and a vision for people to work. And then you have managers like head of marketing, head of sales, head of finance, head of compliance, head of IT. So these are the people who are actually carry out those work. That's how it's always in an organization. For Avatar also is the same. So Rama is the CEO and he needs manager to ensure that the activity, the avatar karya, the reason why the avatar was undertaken has to be carried out. He needs help. So who are these people who provide help? The Devas, they provide help. The Devas are basically gods who have been given various managerial positions. So Surya is the sun, right? Varuna is in charge of water. Agni is in charge of fire. Right? Vayu is in charge of the air. So everybody has been given a particular nature designation to manage the nature. Those devas, they offer that a part of them, their Atmaja means sun, literally means sun. What do you mean by Atmaja means? He who is a part of my Atma, okay, he who is a part of me, I will give you as a designated support. So that person will take birth on earth at the same time when Vishnu will take a birth on earth, and they will help him. Okay? So the Devas have supported. So they always come as a gang. Now what is this gang made up of? Vayu, that is the god of air, gave his Atmaja. Who is he? He is Hanuman. Right? Hanuman becomes Vayu's son. Indra says, I will also give a son, and his son is Vali. Surya, that is God's sun god, he gives his son, and that is Sugriva. Vishwakarma is the architect for Devas. So all construction work is generally planned by Vishwakarma. Vishwakarma also sends his son because this particular avatar karya will require some construction. As we go along, we will see. Right? So he also sends his son, and that is Nala. and Agni's son is Nila. Okay, so these are the people who now form as a band of brothers as a support for Rama. Right? So these all people are Vanar. Rama is a Nar, that is Purush, and all these people are Vanar. And we know why they are like that, right? Because Ravana had asked for everything, but he missed out in his choice on humans and on monkeys. And that is the reason gods had to take that as a form to ensure that they kill Ravana, right? Hanuman requires a whole session, right, in introduction, which we have already done. We've already done when Hanuman Jayanti had occurred in somewhere in April. We had covered his story in detail. I will not again cover, of course, we can keep on covering Hanuman's story endlessly. It is a character that we can talk for hours together, right? But I will not spend too much time. Just to give you a quick brief recap of what he is or who he is. Basically, Hanuman is Kesari. Kesari and Anjana's son. Kesari is a monkey king. Anjana is his wife. Their son is Hanuman. Whether Hanuman was his original name, Hanuman was not his original name. Because Hanuman as a word means somebody with a broken jaw. Okay, that is not something a mother would keep a child's name as, right? So what would have been the name? His name that Hanuman got as a name on the cradle was Sundar. Okay, that is a name that his mother had kept for him because Hanuman was very beautiful, it seems. For every mother, his or her, her son or daughter is always the most beautiful. There's no doubt about it. Kesari is the father. Kesari again is actually a title. His name I don't recollect. Kesari because he was so fierce like a lion amongst the Vanars. That's the reason he got a title called Kesari. Kesari means lion in Sanskrit. Anjana Devi was actually an Apsara. Okay, in Indralok, she was an Apsara. She was in love with Vayu Bhagwan, that is god of wind, god of air. So when you are in love, you do all crazy things, and what they do is they take a break from their job and they say, let's go for a getaway, and they come down to earth. For them, getaway is earth, right? So they come down and in the river they are kind of playing. So when it's a fresh budding love, people do crazy things, they do all childlike things. So Anjana Devi in her earlier form, she's kind of playing with water. She's splashing water on Vayu Bhagwan and throwing flowers at him, and she's doing these small mischiefs that one generally does in such moments. I'm sure all of us have done it. Okay, so this is something that Anjana Devi is doing. Now, while she is doing this mischief, she ends up disturbing a rishi who's doing penance in a nearby place. As she is splashing the water, that water is going and falling on that rishi. That rishi comes out of his meditation and he says, "You are behaving like a monkey, so I curse you to become a monkey." Okay, that is what he curses her, and hence Anjana Devi takes birth as a princess in the monkey clan. Okay, Vanar clan. She gets married, and then Vayu Bhagwan ensures that Paisam comes and falls in her lap, and she consumes, and then Hanuman is born. Hanuman and his qualities, I said, we can keep on talking, right? There's no end to it. But all his qualities, if at all I have to put into a summary fashion, there is a shloka. There is a small verse which describes him. It says, Buddhir balam, yasho dhairyam, nirbhayatvam, arogata, ajadyam, vakpatutvam cha hanuman smaranat bhavet. So what it says is, if I pray to Hanuman, what are the qualities that I get? I get these qualities. Whose qualities are those? They are Hanuman's qualities. Right? It says Buddhir Balam, Buddhi. Okay, he is extremely intelligent. Balam, strength. Buddhir Balam, Yasho Dhairyam, graceful appearance. Yasho means graceful appearance. Dhairyam means patience. A person who has, it's an extremely important quality. Specifically for people who are physically strong, patience is an extremely important quality. Yasho Dhairyam, Nirbhayatvam, fearlessness. Arogata, completely devoid of all ill health, full of well-being and healthy body structure. Ajadyam vak patutvam cha. Ajadyam means somebody who is not slothful, somebody who is not lazy. Any work given in our office, we know how our colleagues behave, right? If we say this is the work to be done, they'll say, when do you want to do? Which means they are not asking for the deadline, they are asking for how much time they have to start the work, right? When you give a work to Hanuman, he will start the work like this, right? completely devoid of laziness, no tamas gun at all. Vak patutvam, which means his ability to speak. He was an expert person when it comes to speaking. He will know when to speak, what, how. I know, in a manner that people will not get hurt and yet getting his work done. Somebody is very smart. So there is one single word in Hindi that is called chatur. Okay, shrewd. The person is smart, just not intelligent. We see a lot of intelligent people who are dumb. They don't know how to behave with relatives and stuff like that. He was not just intelligent, he was also smart, right? And that is what characterized Hanuman. So such was Hanuman. He knew not only in terms of knowledge, Vedas, Shastras and all of that, he knew all 9 Vyakranas in Sanskrit. Those days, grammar, there were 9 different grammars in Sanskrit. Not just one grammar. Today we learn only one grammar in Sanskrit, which is a Panini Vyakarana. Those days there were 9 different, and he knew all the 9 different 9 Vyakaranas. Okay, such was his hold on language per se. Such was Hanuman. Okay. Now, why is Sugriva hiding from his estranged brother called Vali? Vali is a very important character and I would need about 10-15 minutes just to tell his story. So, who is Vali? Right? Vali is Indra's son. Sugriva, his brother, is Surya's son. Right? Now, Vali and Sugriva, if you were to really see, Vali, I said, is Indra's son, Sugriva is Surya's son. This is in Ramayana. In Mahabharata, Arjuna is Indra's son and Karna is Surya's son. In Ramayana, it is the Indra's son who becomes a rogue, who goes against the script that was given to him. Why is Vali down? He is there to help Rama in his objective. Right? That is the reason why Surya has sent him. Right? Indra has sent him. And it is Vali who goes rogue, that is Indra's son. In Mahabharata, it is the other way around. Arjuna is Indra's son and Surya's son is Karna. It is Karna who becomes a rogue. Rogue in the sense he goes into the opposite camp and fights from that side and hence had to be killed by Krishna or rather by Arjuna. So that Vali is basically Indra's son, extremely powerful Vanar, okay? His strength, it seems, was equivalent to 70,000 elephants. That was the strength that he had. Just to compare what 70,000 elephants is, Duryodhana and Bhima, they were born, these are Mahabharata characters, they were born with 8,000 elephant strength. But because of 2 incidents that happen in Bhima's life, his strength gets doubled each time. So because of an incident that happens in the childhood, I will not get into details, it turns out to be 16,000, and because of another incident when he meets Hanuman, it again gets doubled into 32,000. So at the time of war, Bhima had 32,000 elephant strength, equivalent strength. Vali was 70,000, more than double of what Bhima at his best was. This Vali is so powerful that nobody is ready to antagonize him also. So when they do the Sagar Manthan, if you remember the Kurma avatar, where they churn the ocean, okay, with Vasuki, and a lot of things come out of that. The last one is the Amrit, the elixir of life. But before that, a lot of other things come. One of the things that come out of that is Tara, one of the Apsaras, who Vali falls in love with, and he says, "This is mine," and he takes and marries Tara. So Tara is Vali's wife, and the moment Vali claims his stake on her, nobody is ready to oppose because that powerful is Vali. This already powerful Vali goes and does a lot of penance, and Brahma gets pleased. And typical of everybody who wants to ask for a boon, okay, he asks that I don't want to get killed at all. Now Brahma is very pissed off. He's saying, what is this? Everybody does boon and they all ask me, they don't want to get killed. There's a standard operating procedure here. You can't ask for that. You need to ask all the details. Okay? Not getting killed is not an answer. That I'm not going to give that as a boon. You need to ask me specifically what and how you don't want to get killed. So Vali thinks for a while and he says, okay, forget everything else. You just give me half of the strength of my opponent to me. Okay? So Brahma says, Tathastu. So now look at this choice of the boon. He says, anybody who stands in my presence, his half of his strength would become would become mine. So now he's got 70,000 elephants strength. Now if somebody with say 1 lakh elephant strength, if suppose somebody is standing in front of him, that person will become 50,000 and this guy will become 1,20,000. So at any given point of time, anybody who stands in his presence will be, his strength will be depleted lesser than what Vali has, because he's already taken half of his strength, right? Vali by his choice, and this is something I keep repeating, Vali by his choice has now decided how he will die. Hiranyakashipu by his choice had decided how he is going to die. Who killed is not incident, it's only incidental. Narasimha Avatar was taken because Hiranyakashipu was to be killed. But the manner in which he was killed was not decided by Narasimha, was not decided by Prahlada, was not decided by God. He himself had chosen, right? Because he had chosen a list of choices, and the corollary, the opposite to that choice, means that that is how he will get killed. Ravana also had his own choice, right? And that is the reason Rama took an avatar as a human and all others took an avatar as a Vanar, because those are the two things that he left, and that is how he is going to be killed. Vali also had chosen, the moment he said half of somebody else's strength is going to be mine, which means he had chosen that he is going to be killed by a person who is not standing in his presence. It has to be perforce by a person standing behind him or hiding from him. So how he got killed was not in the hands of gods at all. It was very much his own choice, his own volition that he did. He said, I don't want, somebody else's strength is to be mine, half of it has to be mine. Which means anybody who wants to kill him cannot stand in his presence. It has to be hiding, right? We'll come to this story later on. Such was his choice, and that is how he is living. He becomes the king of Vanara, okay? Now, and married to Tara, he's got a son called Angada, okay? So in Varkari Sampradaya, this is a sampradaya that is very famous in Maharashtra. In Varkari Sampradaya, Prahlad, Angad, Prahlad in the Satyug, okay, Dwapar, Angad, Treta is Uddhava, okay, Namdev, and then Tukaram. All are a part of the same avatar, okay. Prahlad's next birth is Angad. Angad's next birth is Uddhava. Uddhava who remains with Krishna very closely. And Uddhava wanted to take the fruits, wanted to taste the fruits of Prema Bhakti. So he puts that request to Krishna. Krishna says, yes, it will happen in Kali Yuga. He takes birth as Namadeva. And because Namadeva had not finished his X amount of Abhanga in his own lifetime, he had to take again birth as Tukaram to complete those list of Abhangas. Okay? So that is how Varkaris believe that Prahlad, Angad, Uddhav and Namdev and Tukaram are the part of the same lineage. Angad is his son. Okay? And this Vali is ruling the Kishkinda. His kingdom is in Kishkinda, which is in Karnataka now. So once what happens is, there is a buffalo demon, okay, called Dundubi. Now this guy is Mayasura's son. If you remember Mayasura is, just as Vishwakarma is the architect for Devas, Mayasura is the architect for the demons, the Asuras, okay. His son Dundubi has suddenly become very powerful, and he is feeling that he should be named as the most powerful being on the planet. So he goes and challenges the ocean, he goes and challenges the mountain, he goes and challenges the Devas, and he says, come for a duel with me, I will defeat, I want to be proven as the strongest on this earth. So everybody says, no, you are very powerful. He finally goes to Himavat, that is the mountain god. He says, don't come and challenge me, I can't even move myself. He says, go and fight Vali. He is the most powerful person on earth now. If you go and defeat him, then anyways you are being named as the most powerful. So he comes and calls Vali for a duel. Okay, and outside the gate is shouting for Vali. 15-foot bison. Okay, I don't know if you have seen Indian bison. It's huge, even otherwise huge. This guy is 15-foot tall, huge bison, and he is now calling for a duel with Vali. Vali with full rage. Now Vali has a weakness. His weakness is that anybody calls him for a fight, he will not pay heed to any advice that is given. Take care, you're supposed to not rush into a fight, you find out what is his antecedents, what are his powers, get into a fight while knowing, as you know your enemy, all of that is gone by the wind. The moment he's being called for a fight, he'll simply rush out and give a treatment that that enemy needs. Vali comes out and there's a huge battle that happens between Dundubi and Wali. Of course, Wali had to win. Dundubi gets subdued. Dundubi asks for pardon and he says, "Let me go. I was wrong in considering myself as strong. Let me go. Let me live at least." Wali is in no mood to listen. He kills him. He holds the tail of the buffalo and he whirls like this. Can you see me? Yeah? So he whirls like this and then he throws. The power with which Wali throws, it travels hundreds of yojanas. Okay, 100 yojana. Each yojana is about an average. There are multiple mathematics. Some talk of 8 kilometers, some talk of 13. So it's an average of 10 kilometers for easy maths. 100 yojana is about 1000 kilometers. It travels 1000 kilometers and falls at a place where Matanga Rishi is doing penance. Okay? And falls right beside him, and that whole blood splatters into his jagna. Matanga Muni is enraged. Matanga Muni gets up and he curses and he shouts loud, saying that the person who is responsible to do this, if he ever sets his foot even remotely close to my ashram, his head will get exploded. That is the curse that Matanga Rishi gives, because the carcass of that buffalo falls near his ashram and spoils the entire serene atmosphere. That place where Matanga Rishi was doing his penance is near Rishyamukha Parvata. Okay? Which is the reason when Vali and Sugriva fall apart on favor, Sugriva runs and hides in Rishyamukha Parvata. Why? Because that is a place where Vali will not come. Okay? That is the reason he goes and hides there. Now, why is it that there is a fight between the brothers? There is a character called Mayavi, there are different counts. So one of them says that he is Dundubi's brother, while in some it is said as Dundubi's son. He wants to revenge the death of Dundubi, and he comes again and invites Vali for a duel. So this guy again gets beaten badly. But this battle goes on for days, it seems. Okay, it goes on for quite a few number of days. Vali beats him. What Mayavi does is, because he knows asking pardon is not going to work, because Vali is never in a mood to pardon, he starts running away. As he's running, Vali is following him, and Sugriva sees Vali running, Sugriva also follows him. This Mayavi enters into a cave. As he enters into a cave, Vali stops and he says, "Sugriva, now I am going to enter the cave. If after some number of days, if I do not come out, close the mouth of the cave with a huge boulder, assume that I am dead, and then you go and rule Kishkinda." This is what Vali himself has told him. Okay? Vali gets in, 5 days, 10 days, 20 days, 30 days, these guys, they're not coming out at all. After a long time, there is a bloodstream that starts flowing out, and there is a huge shout, and it seems to be a Vali. Sugriva thinks it is Vali, and Vali is dead. So as Vali had told, he closes the mouth of the cave with a huge boulder, packs it properly, and then comes out to Kishkinda, grieves over his brother's death, but as his brother has told, to take over the reins of the kingdom, he becomes the king of Kishkinda and is ruling for a few days. Vali now comes out of that cave, he pushes the boulder, he comes out of the cave, and now he comes to Kishkinda. As soon as he comes to Kishkinda, sees his brother on the throne, he is very angry and he is enraged, and he says, "This is the reason you put a rock on the mouth of the cave, so that you can become the king. You wanted to usurp the kingdom from me, I will kill you." And that is what Vali says. Sugriva is trying to try and tell him, "Vali, it is because of you that I did. You only told me to do it." But Vali, as I said, once he becomes angry, he doesn't listen to anybody, which was his main problem. He's not even ready to listen to Sugriva. Sugriva understands that with this kind of anger, it's going to be very difficult for him to manage with Vali. He immediately jumps out from the window and runs away, because fighting Vali is out of question. Vali is extremely powerful, right? And anyway, half of Sugriva's strength will anyway come. Sugriva even otherwise is weaker than Vali. And you stand in his presence, half of Sugriva's strength is going to come. So Sugriva will anyway be reduced to a minuscule strength. So he runs away. Along with him run away Nala, Nila, Jambavan and Hanuman. Now why does Hanuman also follow Sugriva and doesn't remain with Vali is because when Hanuman took education, he took education with Surya. Surya is his guru, right? So Surya for Guru Dakshina, one of the Guru Dakshina that he asked for, he said, my son Sugriva is ruling, I mean he is there in Kishkinda, you have to become his advisor. That is the Guru Dakshina that Surya asks. So his alliance, his loyalty is attached to Sugriva and not to the throne per se. So the moment Sugriva runs out, he has to follow Sugriva. That is the reason Hanuman also follows Sugriva. What Vali does is, Vali doesn't stop here. He marries Sugriva's wife and makes her as his wife. Okay? Sugriva's wife is Ruma, that is the name. Vali's wife is Tara. Okay? And he makes his brother's wife as his own wife. Okay? This is what Vali does. This Vali is now ruling at Kishkinda. In order to hide from them, Nala, Nila, Sugriva and Jambavan and Hanuman, they are now hiding in Rishyamukha. Why Rishyamukha? Because Vali will not come. Because Vali will not wait. Vali will search to the end of the world and go and kill Sugriva. The only place where he will not go is Rishyamukha Parvata, because the moment he places his leg on he lands on that place, his head will explode. So he is not going to go there. So he is hiding in Rishyamukha Parvata. It is this Vali that Sugriva says, whether these two people have come from Vali. That is the reason he is afraid of them. Hanuman has changed his disguise. We gave him a long time to change. He has done it long back. So Hanuman now has changed into a Brahmin. No, I cannot imagine Hanuman in a Brahmin's disguise. I mean, it is such a shabby disguise. Hanuman is a muscular structure, right? Brahmins are lean, frail looking people, right? And Hanuman is solidly built muscular structure. But I don't know, Hanuman chose to be a Brahmin and he comes. Now, Kamba Ramayana, which is in Tamil, okay, describes this. Each poet has their own way of taking, have their take on each of the scene in Ramayana. It is said that when Hanuman starts walking closer to Rama and Lakshmana, it seems his body weight, his bone weight starts reducing. Okay, it starts reducing as he starts nearing Rama and Lakshmana, but there is some other weight which starts increasing. And Kamba says, what is that weight? That is the weight of his affection. As he starts closing on Rama and Lakshmana, as Rama and Lakshmana come more and more closer to him, there is an untold, inexplicable devotion, affection that starts rising in Hanuman. It is so much that it exceeds his own physical weight. That is the amount of affection. It's only a simile. That's a kind of affection that it starts developing in his heart. Hanuman comes and stands in front of Rama and Lakshmana. Now, what is the brief that Sugriva has given? The brief is that you have to be discreet. You are not supposed to tell about anything that is happening here, and you are supposed to find out who they are. Now, Hanuman comes and stands in front of them. He's supposed to tell a lie, right? He's in disguise. The reason he's in disguise, he's supposed to tell a lie that I'm a Brahmin. Who are you? These are the questions that he's supposed to ask. He starts off saying, I am Anjani Putra, Kesari Nandan, Sugriva Sachiva, Vanara Hanumanta. He gives his entire introduction. Okay? That he is Anjani and Kesari's son. He is Sugriva Sachiva, means he is a minister. He is an advisor to Sugriva. Okay? And he is a Vanar himself. He is not in a Vanar position. He is in a Brahmin disguise, right? He is saying, I am a Vanar called Hanumanta, and he does Namaskar. Now, why does he do that? Because it seems the moment he sees Rama and Lakshmana, he is not able to tell a lie at all, right? And he opens up all his cards completely. Then Hanuman asks that, who are you two beautiful, youthful looking, handsome looking princes? You look prince, but you are in an ascetic, in a form. He goes on to describe your lotus eyes, your lotus hands, your beautiful frame of body. Who are you people? Is what he keeps on asking. Now, Rama looks at Hanuman and turns to Lakshmana, okay, and he says, see how intelligently Lakshmana has introduced himself, and he goes on to describe Hanuman. He's just given these, he's asked only these questions. Okay, as to who are you, so beautiful looking, and he quotes certain shlokas. Rama is seeing Lakshmana and is saying how beautiful he speaks. Look at his intelligence. Even if a person has learned all 4 Vedas and the Upanishads, Even a person with so much knowledge cannot describe in such beautiful words, he says. Now, why does he say that? Because in describing Rama and Lakshmana, Hanuman has used certain references to certain Upanishad that forms a part of all four Vedas. Okay? So when he is actually referenced that you have such a beautiful lotus eyes, it is in Chandogya Upanishad. He takes a sloka from there. Okay, so he is not, because he is intelligent, Hanuman is intelligent, he knows all Upanishads and Vedas. When he gave a simile from each of the Vedas and its Upanishad. Rama recognized, because he has to also show that he is equally intelligent, has understood his source. He also tells Lakshmana that look at his intelligence. All those who have learned Vedas can also not say this. Now Rama doesn't stop there. Rama realizes Hanuman's skill. In spite of the fact that he has not been able to tell a lie, he doesn't stop there. He says, look at his ability to speak. He is so chatur, he says. And he goes on to say, Hanuman is somebody who can never ever speak ill of anybody. Never ever has he uttered a bad word. This Rama is explaining to Lakshmana about Hanuman, who's just met him a couple of minutes back. Never ever uses a redundant word. So all of us, have this habit. We generally will use couple of adjectives instead of just using a single adjective which implies the same thing. We'll end up using couple of adjectives to give that force to that sentence. But what actually it means is it's not a best way of speaking. Basically, you use a redundancy. You have used two words which is redundant. One word is more than enough. He says he never uses a redundant word. He says no words that he uses can ever be interpreted wrongly. So Sanskrit is a very unique language. Okay, Hari means somebody who removes our sins and generally signifies Vishnu. Hari would also means a monkey. Okay, so each word will have multiple meanings, and hence when I use the word, there is a possibility that somebody else can interpret it wrongly, right? But Hanuman was somebody who would structure a sentence in such a manner that his words will never have a different interpretation at all, apart from what he intends to give to that sentence. He will never drag a sentence. We all do this, right? When we can't find words, we all do this. Or we repeat, like you would have seen me say this, like, because I'm not able to get the other next word in my mind, right? So I'm searching for the next word. Now Hanuman will not do all of that. Hanuman is very intelligent. For him, words are already waiting in his mind. So he'll never do a drag in a sentence. Never ever speak fast or unclearly. He will speak very properly, such that the person will understand. No improper pronunciation. The pronunciation will also be accurate. Never ever will talk false. Okay? And he says, all of this Hanuman manages with an utmost warmth in his voice, which comes from the bottom of his heart. Now Rama recognizes all this from a small introduction that Hanuman gave about himself. This place, Rama shows that he is God, and he is understood why Hanuman is there. Rama gives Hanuman a darshan, which is a rare darshan, with Shankh and Chakra, the conch and the chakra, with Hanuman sees, and he realizes that this is Vishnu himself on earth. Brief moment, Ram gives this darshan to Hanuman to realize that we know who we are and our antecedents, just to show that particular, briefly he shows his true form. Then Rama introduces himself. Rama says, we are Dasharatha Nandan, we are sons of Dasharatha, and he briefly gives his background, saying this is what has happened. I lost my wife, somebody is abducted, and we are in search of a person called Sugriva, whom we were told lives atop this Rishyamukha Parvata. And who are you? So can you take me to them? So Hanuman very gladly says, yes, of course I know who Sugriva is. I'm actually his minister only. So come with me, I will take you. What Hanuman does is he puts Ram on one shoulder and Lakshman on the other shoulder, and he says, let's fly into the top, let's not keep walking on this mountain. That is a photo which I sent today in the group, which actually signifies this particular scene. This meeting is a special meeting between the greatest possible devotee that we are aware of in our Puranas, meeting his greatest possible Aradhya Dev that we know in Puranas. Our Hanuman, the great devotee, meets his Aradhya Dev Ram. And with this parva, this particular segment, I would pray that let all of us get our own gurus or gods Gurus are who? Gods in human form, right? Let all of us get our own Aradhya Dev or Aradhya Guru, be blessed with them, and let Hanuman fill our hearts in the same manner and the same amount of devotion that Hanuman has for his Aradhya Dev. Let us pray for the same amount of devotion for our own Aradhya Dev or Guru. It's a beautiful parva. After the Ramayana session, you all might want to do, whoever wishes to do a Nevedya, you all might want to do a Nevedya, offer it and consume it. So this is the beautiful Hanuman and Ram first scene where they meet each other. Now, story forward. Hanuman picks them on the shoulder and straight goes. Now, Sugriva is in tension. Sugriva had told this guy to be in disguise and keep watching him and give him indication as to whether they are friendly or enemies. Hanuman has forgotten all that. After seeing Rama and Lakshmana, has completely forgotten all that. Not only that, this guy has also shown up his true form and he's also picked them on the shoulder and is coming towards him. When the scramble, Sugriva doesn't know what to do, he rushes into the cave. Okay, doesn't know because he's not given any indication whether these guys are friends or no, he doesn't know anything. The fact that Hanuman is getting, he has some trust that Hanuman would not do something wrong. He rushes into his cave. Hanuman comes, he keeps Rama and Lakshmana there and he says, just give me 2 minutes, let me introduce you to Sugriva and then call you for his audience. Then he goes in and Hanuman is all excited. Okay, imagine a small child has got his gift, and a long promised gift. He's done good in exams and we promised a cycle or an iPad or whatever. And the child has got that gift. That first day when he gets that gift, that kind of excitement. He comes and Sugriva, do you know who's there? Do you know who's outside standing? So he says, who's it? Wait, just hold on yourself. Why are you so excited? So it's like this Rama and Lakshmana themselves, Dasharatha's son. I don't know, when I saw them, I was like really attracted to them. I could not hide my true identity. I have told them everything about you. You should come and meet them. So Sugriva says, okay, I mean, if you have already checked their antecedents and they have come in search of you, that is what they claim. And they are not somebody who will ever speak untruth. So you should meet them. So Hanuman gets Rama and Lakshmana and he makes him meet Sugriva. He introduces each of them. Now Hanuman plays the liaison officer, right? Beach ka broker. At one side you have Rama and Lakshmana, the other side you have Sugriva, whose friendship is to be forged. Right? So Hanuman has a duty to do. At one side you have Rama and Lakshmana themselves, okay, wanting to take friendship, and the other side is Sugriva, son of Surya. Now Rama starts off his story. Okay, so Sugriva asks what happened, why is it that you are sorrowful, and what are the things that you have gone through. So I'm sorry, it's already 10 more minutes. Okay, I'll try and cover this part of the story. So Rama starts off his story saying that we were at Panchavati and I was told that Ravana has abducted my wife, and just saying this, Rama starts crying. The Sugriva, these are very typical friends. We all have such friends, okay? Sugriva says, oh Rama, don't worry, even my wife was abducted by Vali, it's okay, we are Kshatriya, go marry somebody else. It is Sugriva's way of consoling Rama. So we generally have such friends, they don't know how to behave, what to speak. In their good intention, in the right intention, they are trying to console our grief, but they end up speaking the wrong thing. Okay? But that is what Sugriva was. Sugriva didn't know how to speak. The Hanuman is all angry. He is kind of flaring his eyes and is saying, what are you saying? You are talking to Rama and he is not somebody who is going to marry somebody else. He is in grief. He has been crying for his wife. And you are talking of your wife being taken away and it is okay. He said, wait. Then he comes in between and says, Rama, that is not what Sugriva meant. He is saying, don't be unhappy. We will try and find your wife. He also is facing the same grief, is what he is wanting to impress upon. But he doesn't intend to hurt your intentions or your feelings. So Rama says, no, I understand. Sugriva also tells his story. Then he tells his story, Dundubi, what happened, Mayavi, what happened, and how I was driven away. I also lost my kingdom like you lost. I also lost my wife, and now he's shedding some tears to show that he's also genuinely feeling bad about it. So Sugriva, he says, I also lost my wife. Vali has taken away my wife. So what happens is, Rama says, because we are samadukhi, which means both of us are facing the same sorrow, both of us are sad for the same reasons, it becomes a natural alliance, right? So we are naturally positioned in a manner that we can become friends. So Rama says, I will befriend you, let us become friends. I promise that I will ensure that I get back your kingdom, I get back your wife for you. In return, you need to promise me. First, I will do my part of the promise. You then do your part of the promise. You have to ensure that you search Sita for me and also give me your army in case it comes to a situation where I have to wage a battle, right? Because you would need army as well. So now what happens is, you have Rama offering help, Sugriva offering help. Small portion that I missed out, I will just quickly cover that. As Rama is discussing the fact that Sita has been taken away by air, it is Ravana who took away in a chariot, Pushpak Viman. That's what Jatayu has told. Immediately Hanuman comes to remembers that there was a small bundle which was thrown by that lady who flew, and he says there was a lady who flew. Yes, we saw, and there was a small bundle that she threw. Maybe is it Sita's? Just have a look, and they show all the ornaments, and Rama is he's sorrowful, but he's also excited. Yes, this is Sita's earrings, this is Sita's nose rings, this is Sita's necklace, this is Sita's bangles. And after saying everything, he asks Lakshman. He says, Lakshman, isn't this just for confirmation? Not that he doesn't know, but when we are unhappy, when we are sad, we would need some confirmation, right? So he says, Lakshmana, see, this is the bangles of Sita, this is the necklace of Sita, isn't it? Lakshmana is all silent, he's not answering at all. Finally comes to the anklets, the one which is worn payal, which is worn around the ankles. He says, this is Sita's anklets, isn't it? Lakshmana suddenly springs into action. Yes, this is Sita's anklets, correctly, I remember. So Rama says, why did you say that you remember the other ornaments? Can't you remember the bangles, the earring, the nose rings? Lakshmana says, brother, bhaiya, I have never ever seen Bhabi other than her legs. That is the only part of her body that I have ever seen, and that is the reason I can only recognize the anklets. This is a kind of bhakti that Lakshmana did on Sita. Sita is mother equivalent. The only thing that he saw all his life when Sita was in his presence was bowing his head and only looking at her feet. So that is the reason he could only recognize the anklet and nothing else could he recognize. It is this Lakshmana that Sita doubted, okay, and hence got punished of being abducted and going through all the pain that she is going through in Ashokvana. So he embraces his brother. He says, this is a kind of brother, Bhratra Bhakti. That is what the Hindi word is. That is a brother's devotion that you have. And they embrace each other. And now coming back to the friendship. So they hold their hand and they say, we'll now do a pact. Okay? This pact will be forged into a friendship. Suppose an agreement is to be done in today's world. What do? We call for a stamp paper, we print everything, we sign, we get it registered, right? So all of that. Why do we get it done? We also have a witness. Okay? So whenever we sign, this signature, when it was done, it was witnessed by, it is never done at the time of signature, it is done by two people who don't even know each other, which is a different thing. But what happens is, it is also to be witnessed by some people. Why witness? Because if somebody, one of the parties to the agreement, falters in his deliveries, okay, in his deliverables, he has to be brought to the court, and then these agreements and the reasons why he breached, the points that he breached has to be spoken about. That particular point of time, the witness will also be called, whether he had signed this particular signature in your presence, then he is supposed to say yes. So, in those days, there was no court, there was no agreement, no stamp paper, right? There was no registration office standing in the line, so nothing of that kind was happening. So how did you enter into an agreement? It was between them and with Agni as the Sakshi. Okay? That is the reason marriage, this is the biggest agreement that the humans gets into. Why do you do a pradakshina to Agni, and why is it in the presence of Agni? It is because it is done in Agni's Sakshi. Agni stands in witness for the event. Now, Agni stands in witness for the event means if he is supposed to be called to give witness, he has to have the ability to come and stand for witness. Right? Agni apparently had, in Krita, Treta and Dwapar, Agni had the ability to come and stand for witness also, if need be. Okay? Which means what? So suppose Sugriva had faltered on his deliverable and Rama had invoked the clause saying that you had done this agreement in Agni Sakshi. Now I'll call Agni to give witness. They will have a fire lit. Sugriva, the person who is purported to have breached, or a person who is being alleged to have breached, will have to walk through the fire. Okay, that is called as Agni Pariksha. He will have to walk through the fire. If he has not breached, Agni will not hurt him. If he has breached, he will get burned. Okay, final. There is no court, no witness, nothing else. You have breached, you will get burnt to ashes. Period. Agni had the ability to give this witness, and hence all important events, specifically marriage, gets done in the presence of Agni, because Agni has the ability to come and give back the Sakshi. So all husbands and wives, beware, right? Don't break your agreements. Okay, remember those. I don't even remember the 7 promises that one does when doing a pradakshina of Agni. So what do? Hanuman is smart. Hanuman says, let us forge it properly. Let it not be just a verbal promise. He is not doubting Rama. Rama comes from Surya Vamsham, right? Pran jai par bachan na jai. Once given, word given, that is all. He will not go back. He doubts Sugriva. That is his problem. So Hanuman says, let the entire pact of friendship be in the presence of Agni. So they have an Agni lit, and Rama and Sugriva hold their hands and take a pradakshina. As if they are doing a marriage, they take a pradakshina and they forge their friendship in the presence of Agni. Rama embraces Sugriva and he says, from today we are not 5, from today we are 6. What does it mean? If you remember, there are 4 brothers, right? Rama, Bharata, Lakshmana, Shatrughna. When he met Guha while crossing Ganga, and Guha had helped him, the boat chieftain, at that point of time he had embraced Guha and said, from today onwards we are 5. We are not 4, we are 5 brothers, you are included in it. And today when he embraces Sugriva, he says, from today onwards we are 6. We are no more 5, we are 6 brothers. You are a part of my brothers group. This is there in Kambaramayan, which is there in the Tamil Ramayana. I have already exceeded the 8 o'clock time. This beautiful scene where Hanuman has met Rama, Sugriva and Rama have forged into a friendship. We will stop the story today as of now. In the next session, I will be taking the death of Vali Vadha, okay, and also the reasons why Vali Vadha was the manner in which Rama did was the right way and was not adharma, is something that I will try and cover. I will, to my best abilities, try and give reasons as to why that is not adharma. Generally, that is a question that is asked, whether the way Rama killed Vali, was it right? So all those who probably are interested in hearing me talk on that, you might have heard a lot of experts, but if you are interested in me talking on that, please do attend next session. Next session is going to be Vali Vadha and the reasons why Vali was killed in the manner in which he was killed. With that, I end today's story. Are there any questions, doubts, anything that was not clear in what I spoke? Else we can get into Hanuman Chalisa. Yeah, great. Yeah, Devendra. Yes. Yeah, I will come to that story, correct. So, when, so this is a part of the Sundar Kand, okay, where Sugriva sends 4 contingents to search Sita, north, south, east, west, okay, and he sends his best assistants on the southern direction. I will come to that story when I come to Sundarkand, because it's a part of the Sundarkand. It requires a particular time to spend on that, as to why they go ahead with that. Not only that, in spite of knowing that Ravana has taken, Rama keeps searching as to which direction he would have gone. Because it is not necessary, if he has flown south, he would have gone south. He would have gone south and then taken a detour to the west. He could have gone south and then taken a detour to the north, east, anywhere. He could have gone anywhere, right? He's on a Pushpak Viman. So you cannot, Asuras are known for their deceit. They are a clan who are experts in deceiving others, right? And that is their very core, that is core to their characteristics. And that is the reason they use their maya, their power of magic also to deceive others. And hence, Sugriva didn't want to take chance, Rama didn't want to take chance. He sends all contingents on all 4 directions. but sends his most trusted people like Nala, Nila, Rama, Hanuman and Jambavan and Angad, that is Vali's son. All of them go in the southern direction, while all others actually go in the north, east, west directions. Because there was more likely a chance that the southern contingent will find the target than the others. Thank you. Yeah. Yes, Kaki. Sorry, repeat kara, sorry. Vali asks for a boon from Brahma, saying that if there is any opponent who stands in my presence, half of his strength has to become mine. So if somebody has got 10 as a strength, if there is a measure for strength, if somebody has got 10 as a strength, then 5 will get transferred to Vali. That person will be left only with 5. Vali already has 20, so he will become 25, so anyway he will become more powerful. Yeah? So we'll get into Hanuman, yeah, Dhanyavad. We'll get into Hanuman Chalisa. Shri Guru Charan Saroj Raj Nij Man Mukur Sudhari Raghuvar Bimal Yasu Jodaya Kupalachari Buddhihin Tanu Janike Sumirau Pavan Kumar Bal Buddhi Vidya Dev Mohe Harau Klesha Vikar Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar Jai Kapi Sati Loka Ujagar Ram Dutta Tulita Baladhama Anjali Putra Pavan Sutanama महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी कंचन बरन विराज सुबेसा कानन कुंडल कुंचित केसा हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा विराजे कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन तेज प्रताप महाजगबंदन विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर राम काज करिबे को आतुर को रसिया राम लखन सीता मन बसिया सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे रामचंद्र के काज सवारे लाए सजीवन लखन जियाए श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बढ़ाई तुम मम प्रिय भरत ही सम भाई सहस बदन तुम यश गावे अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा नारद सारद सहित अहिसा जम कुबेर दिक्पाल जहाँ ते कवि कोविद कहि सके कहाँ ते उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा राम मिलाए राजपद दीना मंत्र विभीषण माना लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना सहस्र योजन पर भानु लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते सुगम अनुग्रह तुम्हारे तेते दुआरे तुम रखवारे होत न आज्ञा बिनु पैसारे सब सुख लहै तुम्हारी सरना तुम रक्षक काहू को डरना आपन तेज समारो आपै दीनो लोक हाकते का भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे महावीर जब नाम सुनावे नासे रोग हरै सब पीड़ा जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा संकट ते हनुमान छुड़ावे मन क्रम वचन ध्यान जो लावे सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे सोही अमित जीवन फल पावे चारों जुग परताप तुम्हारा है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा साधु संत के तुम रखवारे असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता असवर दीन जानकी माता राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे अंत काल रघुवर पुर जाई जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई और देवता चित्तन धरहि हनुमत से ही सर्व सुख करहि संकट कटै मिटै सब पीड़ा जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई कृपा करो गुरुदेव की नाई ये शत बार पाठ करे कोई छूट ही बंदी महासुख होई जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा तुलसीदास सदा हरि चेरा कीजय नाथ हृदय माडेरा तनय संकट हरण मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसु सुर भूप सियावर रामचंद्र की जय के बोलो हनुमान की जय। धन्यवाद।